Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly mind-bending user manual for the human biocomputer, John C. Lilly's Simulations of God. Our goal here is to take this incredibly dense, fascinating book and break it down so that by the end of our time together, you'll understand it as if you had just read it cover to cover yourself. We're going to dive right into what the author is saying about the hidden programming running inside our heads, and more importantly, how we can use that knowledge to literally upgrade our own lives.
So let's kick things off with a pretty massive question about the lens through which you view the world. Have you ever actually stopped to consider that the fundamental truths you hold dear, the unquestionable realities of your daily life, might just be software running on the hardware of your brain? Seriously, what actually dictates your deepest reality? Is it some universal external truth, or is it just an internal program?
The legendary sci-fi writer Arthur C. Clarke hit the nail on the head when he wrote, "The person one loves never really exists, but is a projection focused through the lens of the mind onto whatever screen it fits with least distortion." And that beautifully sets up the core premise of Lilly's entire work. The things we absolutely believe are ultimate external truths, well, they're often just incredibly convincing projections coming from our own minds.
Okay, let's jump straight into Section 1, The Science of Belief.
Simulations of God was written by John C. Lilly, who is a physician, a psychoanalyst, and a neuroscientist, and his approach is fascinating. He treats the human brain essentially as a biological computer. In this model, our beliefs, those deep-seated convictions we have about reality, are literally just the software running on that computer. He wanted to figure out exactly how these programs get installed, how they run our lives, and, crucially, how we might rewrite them.
Now, to study these internal programs objectively, Lilly went to some pretty wild lengths. He actively entrenched himself in a sci-fi script operating under the assumption, I am only an extraterrestrial who has come to the planet Earth to inhabit a human body. And look, this wasn't madness. Actually, it was a highly deliberate scientific method. By pretending to be an alien visiting Earth, he could step entirely outside of standard human social conditioning and observe human behavior, including his own mind, without the usual biases.
Moving right along to Section 2, what is a simulation?
So, in the context of this explainer, when Lilly talks about a simulation of God, he is not strictly talking about organized religion. For him, God is basically a placeholder. It represents whatever ultimate concept drives your deepest motivations. It's the core model or scenario lying at the absolute base of your thinking, feeling, and doing. Think of it as the master software program from which all your other subprograms take their orders.
And these deep-seated programs are incredibly diverse. Lilly dedicates whole chapters to exploring them. Some people worship the god of money. Others are driven by a primal biological program, like the god of the body or the god of death. A lot of modern people run the god of science program, placing this absolute, unquestioning trust in scientific models as the final truth of the universe. He even explores the god as the computer. These are all completely different operating systems that a human can run.
But here's the crucial point. Lilly's goal wasn't to judge these simulations. He just wanted to expose them. As he put it, what I wish to do in this book is to give you enough samples to learn your own simulations of God, understand your own system of belief, and find out what is most important to you within yourself. He's basically handing us a map so we can recognize our own hidden operating systems.
Which brings us to Section 3, Testing Reality as if True.
So how did Lilly actually study these deep-seated programs without getting hopelessly trapped in them? Well, he developed a really clever four-step scientific method for the mind. First, he would enter a belief system fully, operating as if true. Second, he'd construct his reality based on that belief, just totally buying into it. Third, he recorded exactly what happened and what he experienced in that specific state. And fourth, and this is the absolute ultimate safety valve, upon leaving the state, he restored his original as-if true or false values. He essentially tried on different realities like suits of clothing, fully experiencing them before taking them off and returning to a neutral baseline.
But to pull this off effectively, he recognized a huge problem. The consensus reality of everyday life is just way too noisy. So he actually invented the sensory deprivation tank. Yep, the exact same isolation tanks people use for wellness today. Floating effortlessly in this soundproof, dark environment of water completely eliminated external social realities and physical inputs. It allowed him to safely isolate and test these internal programs without any outside interference whatsoever.
All right, let's look at Section 4, the state of high indifference.
Lilly points out a pretty stark contrast when it comes to the payoff of all this intense mental work. On one side, you have fixed beliefs. He argues that it's frankly incredibly arrogant for us, these tiny organisms on a small planet, to assume our current limited projections dictate the reality of the entire universe. On the other side, through his isolation work, he discovered a state he called high indifference. Now, this isn't apathy. Instead, it's a state of neutral reinforcement. It's a profound, calm, objective observation that exists perfectly beyond both punishment and reward.
In this state of high indifference, a massive shift happens. You suddenly realize that you are the author, the composer, the director, and the audience of your own internal theater. By stepping back and viewing your mind objectively, you can literally eliminate the fear, guilt, and all those negative aspects of existence that are tied to your old programs. You become the ultimate observer of your own biocomputer, completely free from the control of hidden scripts.
Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, Embracing the Unknown.
So, what do we actually do with this newfound objectivity? Well, the core message of the book is distilled perfectly right here. The explorer of the inner spaces cannot afford the baggage of fixed beliefs. If you truly want to explore the vast potential of your mind, you have to be willing to demote your current model of reality. You have to recognize that your current system is just one of many and simply drop the heavy baggage of absolute certainty.
Lilly beautifully concludes that if we remain open-ended, we guarantee that we'll encounter the unexpected and the unbelievable. Instead of rigidly clinging to a single simulation, we must transition to God as mystery, God as the unknown. You have to leave your mental systems open to make room for all the things you don't yet know, and honestly, perhaps can ever fully know?
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty profound question to chew on. Think about your automatic reactions, your deep fears, and the ultimate drivers in your daily life. Which simulation is running the show for you right now? Is it the pursuit of money, the fear of death, or maybe a rigid adherence to a specific dogma? And more importantly, having learned how this biocomputer works, is it finally time to uninstall that program and embrace the mystery? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating manual for the mind with me today. Keep questioning your programming.